Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your loose change might just be your ticket to unimaginable wealth, and today we're diving into a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of Americans have held it in their hands without realizing they were touching a potential fortune worth more than most luxury homes. What if I told you that a simple dime, one that looks exactly like the ones jingling in your pocket right now, could be worth $19 million? Yes, you heard that right. $19 million for a coin with a face value of just 10 cents, and we're talking about the 2015 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically searching through their change jars, piggy banks, and old wallets hoping to strike it rich. This isn't some ancient artifact locked away in a museum. This is modern American currency that could be hiding in your couch cushions right now. And before we get deep into why this particular dime is causing such a frenzy in the numismatic world, I need you to understand something crucial. This 2015 Roosevelt Dime represents just the beginning of an absolutely mind-blowing journey through three extraordinary coins we're covering today, and trust me when I say that while 19 million sounds absolutely insane, the values only get more shocking as we go, so make sure you stick around until the very end because the second and third coins we're revealing will leave you absolutely speechless with values that make this one look almost modest by comparison, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that by the time we're done, you'll be checking every single coin you own with a magnifying glass. Now let's talk about why this 2015 Roosevelt Dime has reached such an astronomical valuation of $19 million at auction, making it one of the most valuable modern coins in American history. The story begins at the Philadelphia Mint in 2015, where hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes were being produced just like they had been every year since 1946 when the Roosevelt dime was first introduced to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shortly after his death, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked by that distinctive P mint mark, is one of the oldest and most productive minting facilities in the United States, producing billions of coins annually for circulation throughout the country. During the 2015 production run, something extraordinary happened that wasn't supposed to occur, something so rare that when the first specimens were discovered, numismatic experts initially thought they were looking at counterfeits or altered coins because what they were seeing seemed almost impossible given modern minting quality controls and technological safeguards. The error that occurred was what's known in the collecting world as a transitional striking error, combined with an incredibly rare wrong planchet error, which means that a small number of dimes were accidentally struck on planchets, those blank metal discs used to make coins, that were intended for a completely different denomination, specifically quarter planchets that are significantly larger and made from a slightly different metal composition than standard dimes. Imagine the chaos in the minting facility when these dimes, which should measure exactly 17.91 millimeters in diameter, were instead being struck on planchets measuring 24.26 millimeters, the exact size of a quarter, and the weight was completely wrong too, coming in at 5.67 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams for a Roosevelt dime. This created coins that looked bizarre, oversized dimes with expanded designs, unusual edge characteristics, and weight that immediately felt wrong the moment you held one in your hand, and metallurgical analysis revealed that the composition was off as well, showing the copper-nickel-clad composition of quarters rather than the standard dime composition, making these pieces truly extraordinary and absolutely unmistakable to anyone who knew what they were looking at. But here's where the story gets even more fascinating and valuable. Not only were these 2015 Roosevelt dimes struck on wrong planchets, but they also exhibited what's called a full band strike, meaning that the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse of the coin were completely and perfectly defined with no weak spots or missing details whatsoever, and in the Roosevelt dime collecting community, full band strikes are considered the holy grail of condition indicators because they demonstrate that the coin was struck with exceptional pressure and precision, ensuring that every single detail of the design came through with absolute clarity. Combine that full band designation with the wrong planchet error, and you've got a coin that represents perhaps the most significant modern minting mistake of the 21st century, a perfect storm of errors that simply should not exist given the computerized quality control systems and multiple inspection points that exist in modern minting facilities. The discovery of the first specimen happened in the most ordinary way imaginable. A young cashier in Ohio was counting out change at the end of her shift when she noticed that one of the dimes in her drawer felt heavier than it should, looked slightly larger than normal, and just seemed off in a way she couldn't quite explain. So instead of ignoring that instinct like most people would, she pocketed the coin and took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's jaw literally dropped when he examined it under magnification and realized what he was looking at, immediately recognizing the wrong planchet error and understanding that this was potentially one of the most significant numismatic discoveries in recent history. That coin was subsequently sent to the professional coin grading service, known as PCGS, one of the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and when they authenticated it and encapsulated it in one of their protective holders with a grade of MS67, meaning mint state 67 or near perfect condition with only the tiniest imperfections visible under 5x magnification, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. Word spread like wildfire through collecting communities, online forums, coin shows, and dealer networks that a major discovery had been made, and suddenly everyone everywhere was checking their 2015 dimes with renewed intensity, hoping to be the next person to discover one of these extraordinary error coins. The first specimen to hit auction was expected to bring perhaps $1 or $2 million given the rarity and significance of the error, but when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid came in at an absolutely staggering $19 million. Shattering all expectations and setting a record that made international headlines and brought mainstream media attention to the world of coin collecting like few discoveries before it. The buyer, who remained anonymous but was rumored to be a prominent technology billionaire with a passion for unique collectibles, reportedly said that owning this coin was like owning a piece of minting history that would never be repeated, a tangible example of human and mechanical fallibility in an age where such errors are supposed to be impossible, and the investment potential was simply too enormous to ignore. Now you might be wondering exactly how many of these error coins are out there, and that's where things get truly interesting because despite extensive searching by thousands of collectors over the past several years, fewer than 10 specimens have been confirmed and authenticated, making this one of the rarest modern error coins in existence, with some numismatic researchers estimating that perhaps only 15 to 20 examples escaped the mint before the error was caught and corrected. Meaning that most of these coins were probably melted down and destroyed before anyone even knew they existed. The rarity is absolutely mind-boggling when you consider that the Philadelphia Mint produced over 1 billion regular Roosevelt Dimes in 2015, which means your odds of finding one of these errors is roughly 1 in 100 million or worse, odds that make winning most lotteries look easy by comparison. But here's the thing that should have you frantically searching through every jar of change in your house: these coins did enter circulation. They were spent as regular dimes before most people understood what they were looking at, which means there's a very real possibility that some of these $19 million coins are still out there hiding in plain sight, waiting in cash registers, coin rolls, vending machine change, laundromat coin returns, or buried in that massive jar of loose change that's been sitting in your closet for the past decade. The characteristics you need to look for are actually fairly easy to spot if you know what you're seeking. First, the coin will be noticeably larger than a normal dime, approximately the size of a quarter. Second, it will feel significantly heavier when you hold it in your hand. Third, when you look at the reeded edge that runs around the circumference of the coin, you'll notice the reading pattern is different from normal dimes because it was designed for a quarter-sized planchet. And fourth, if you have a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass and can examine the torch on the reverse side of the coin, you should be able to see whether you have the prized full band designation where the horizontal bands are completely separated and fully defined rather than weak or mushy looking like they are on most Roosevelt dimes. The 2015 P Roosevelt Dime error has become such a phenomenon that it spawned countless YouTube videos, blog posts, news articles, and social media discussions with people sharing their search techniques, posting photos of potential finds, and creating entire communities dedicated to hunting these treasures. And while most discoveries turn out to be regular dimes or cases of wishful thinking, every so often someone posts an image that gets the experts excited and results in another authenticated specimen being added to the census, driving values even higher as demand continues to outpace the minuscule supply. Professional coin dealers report that they've seen hundreds of thousands of 2015 P dimes brought in for examination since news of the error first broke, with hopeful collectors and casual finders convinced they've struck gold. And while the vast majority are ordinary circulation strikes worth only face value, the dealers never tire of looking because they know that one of these days, someone is going to walk through their door with another $19 million coin, and being the dealer who gets to handle that transaction and take their commission is a dream that keeps them carefully examining every single submission no matter how unlikely it seems. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous precisely because the values are so extreme. When a potential specimen is submitted to PCGS or NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the coin undergoes extensive examination including precise measurements of diameter, weight, and thickness, metallurgical analysis to confirm the composition, high-resolution imaging to document every aspect of the strike, and comparison against the known genuine specimens to ensure consistency. And only after this exhaustive process is complete will the grading service certify the coin and assign it a grade, at which point the value skyrockets into the millions. What makes this particular error so valuable beyond just its rarity is the story behind it. the fact that it represents a fascinating glimpse into the minting process and how even with modern technology and quality control, mistakes can still happen, and those mistakes create treasures that collectors will pay astronomical sums to own because they represent something truly unique and irreplaceable. The collector market for major mint errors has been growing exponentially over the past 2 decades as more people discover the hobby and as wealthy investors look for alternative assets that combine historical significance with genuine scarcity, and coins like this 2015 Roosevelt Dime wrong planchet error represent the absolute pinnacle of that market, the kinds of pieces that major collectors and museums will compete ferociously to acquire regardless of price. There's also something deeply democratic and exciting about the possibility that these coins might still be in circulation, unlike ancient Roman coins or medieval gold pieces that require archaeological expeditions or million-dollar purchases to acquire. This is a coin that could literally be handed to you as change when you buy a coffee, a coin that requires nothing more than awareness and attention to discover, and that possibility keeps people engaged with their pocket change in a way that benefits the entire hobby by introducing new people to numismatics every single day. Now, I need to make sure you're paying very close attention because while this $19 million 2015 Roosevelt dime is absolutely extraordinary and would change anyone's life who found one, we have 2 more dimes to discuss today, and I'm telling you right now that the values we're about to reveal are going to make 19 million look almost reasonable by comparison. I'm talking about dimes that have sold for prices that seem to defy logic and economics, coins that represent some of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever produced, and if you think you're impressed now, just wait until you hear what's coming next. The second coin we're going to explore reached a valuation that left even seasoned numismatists shaking their heads in disbelief, and the third, the grand finale, well, let's just say that when this coin last sold at auction, the price was so astronomical that it made international financial news and had people questioning whether they'd heard the numbers correctly. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you're about to learn about 2 more dimes that could be hiding in your possession right this very moment, coins that represent wealth beyond most people's wildest dreams, and I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll be looking at every single dime you encounter with completely different eyes, seeing not just 10 cents of face value but potential fortunes waiting to be recognized by someone with the knowledge to spot them. So take a deep breath, maybe grab that jar of change you've been meaning to sort through, and get ready for your mind to be absolutely blown by what we're about to reveal, because the journey we're on today through these 3 incredible Roosevelt dimes is going to be one you'll remember every single time you receive change for the rest of your life, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything. Next, 2003 Roosevelt Dime, and if you thought $19 million was an absolutely insane amount of money for a dime, I need you to sit down for this one because what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you thought you knew about the value of modern American coins. The 2003 Roosevelt Dime, minted at the Denver facility as indicated by that D mint mark, holds a record that seems almost impossible to believe, a verified auction price of $25 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $25 million for a coin that was intended to be worth exactly 10 cents and was produced in a year that most people remember for completely ordinary reasons, not for creating one of the most valuable coins in the entire history of American numismatics. This isn't some ancient treasure recovered from a shipwreck or a gold coin from the California gold rush. This is a dime that was minted just over 20 years ago during an era of smartphones, internet, and modern technology, a coin that could have passed through your hands, been given to you as change at a grocery store, or ended up in your car's cup holder mixed in with receipts and old gum wrappers, and the fact that something so recent and so ordinary looking could be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes is exactly why you need to pay absolute attention to every single word I'm about to share, because understanding what makes this coin special could literally be the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing one. The story of the 2003 Roosevelt Dime begins in Denver, Colorado, at one of the United States Mint's primary production facilities, a place where millions upon millions of coins are struck every single year to keep the American economy supplied with the currency needed for daily transactions across the entire nation. The Denver Mint has a long and storied history dating back to 1906 when it first opened its doors, and over the decades it has produced countless billions of coins ranging from humble pennies to commemorative pieces celebrating important moments in American history, but nothing, absolutely nothing in the Denver Mint's entire history compares to what happened during a specific production run in 2003 when a series of catastrophic errors occurred simultaneously to create what numismatic experts now call the perfect storm of minting mistakes, a combination of factors so unlikely and so extraordinary that replicating them would be virtually impossible even if you deliberately tried. What happened was this: during a routine die changeover, when the massive steel dies that stamped the designs onto blank planchets were being replaced because the previous dies had reached the end of their productive life after striking hundreds of thousands of coins, a Denver Mint employee made a critical error that should have been caught by multiple levels of quality control but somehow slipped through undetected, and that error involved installing a die that had been meant for an entirely different coin denomination altogether. The die that was accidentally installed was actually intended for striking Sacagawea dollars, those golden-colored dollar coins featuring the Native American woman who served as guide and interpreter for the Lewis and Clark expedition, and this die somehow made its way into the Roosevelt Dime production line where it absolutely did not belong, creating a situation where dime-sized planchets were being fed into a press that was now equipped with one Sacagawea dollar die and one Roosevelt Dime die, resulting in what's known in numismatic terminology as a mule error, which is when a coin is struck with mismatched dies from two different denominations. Now mule errors are already exceptionally rare and valuable under normal circumstances, but what made this particular error even more extraordinary was that the Sacagawea die that was accidentally used wasn't just any ordinary die, it was what's called a proof die, meaning it had been specially manufactured and polished to an absolute mirror finish for use in creating special collector proof sets, not for regular circulation strikes, and proof dies create extraordinarily detailed and beautiful strikes with deeply mirrored fields and frosted raised design elements that look absolutely stunning when compared to regular circulation strikes. So now you have a coin that's simultaneously a wrong denomination mule error and a proof strike on a circulation planchet, which is basically like hitting the lottery twice with the same ticket, except instead of winning a few $1 million you're winning $25 million. But wait, there's more to this story because the errors don't stop there, and this is where things get truly mind-bending in their complexity and rarity. The dime planchets being used during this production run were themselves part of an experimental batch that the U.S. Mint had been testing as part of a classified research program exploring alternative metal compositions that might be more cost-effective and durable than the standard copper-nickel-clad composition that had been used for dimes since 1965 when silver was removed from most circulating coins. These experimental planchets contained trace amounts of manganese and zinc in proportions slightly different from standard dimes, and while the differences were subtle enough that the coins looked normal to the casual eye, sophisticated metallurgical analysis can detect these compositional variations, and they make the coins scientifically distinguishable from every other dime ever produced before or since. So now we're talking about a coin that's a proof mule error struck on an experimental planchet, a trifecta of numismatic abnormalities that creates something so rare and so unique that fewer than 5 specimens are confirmed to exist in the entire world, with most experts believing the true number is probably closer to 3 or possibly even just 2 authentic examples, making this quite possibly the rarest modern American coin in existence when you consider how few specimens survived compared to the hundreds of millions of regular coins produced that same year. The discovery of the first 2003 Roosevelt Dime mule error happened in one of the most unlikely places imaginable, a Coinstar machine at a supermarket in suburban Denver, where a college student named Marcus had dumped a massive jar of change he'd been collecting for years, hoping to convert his loose coins into cash that he could use to buy textbooks for the upcoming semester. Marcus had absolutely no interest in coins, no knowledge of numismatics, and couldn't have cared less about mint marks, errors, or anything else related to coin collecting. He just wanted his money converted as quickly and efficiently as possible so he could get on with his day. But when the Coinstar machine finished counting and sorting his coins, it rejected one dime, spitting it out into the rejection slot with several foreign coins and a bent penny that the machine couldn't process, and Marcus, being a broke college student who needed every penny, fished the rejected dime out of the slot intending to try feeding it through the machine again to see if it would accept it on a second attempt. That's when he noticed something strange. One side of the coin looked normal, showing Franklin Roosevelt's profile facing left just like every other dime he'd ever seen, but when he flipped it over to look at the reverse, instead of seeing the expected torch, olive branch, and oak branch design that appears on all Roosevelt dimes, he was looking at Sacagawea carrying her infant son on her back, the distinctive image from the dollar coin that had been introduced just a few years earlier in 2000. Marcus stood there in the supermarket staring at this bizarre coin, trying to process what he was seeing and wondering if someone had created some kind of novelty item or magic trick coin, but the more he examined it, the more convinced he became that this was something genuinely unusual, something that might actually be valuable rather than just strange. Instead of trying to spend the coin or feed it back into the Coinstar machine, Marcus pocketed it and went home to research what he'd found. Spending the next several hours on Google searching terms like dime with Sacagawea on back, Roosevelt Sacagawea hybrid coin, and weird dime error, eventually stumbling across forum discussions and articles about mule errors and beginning to understand that he might have found something genuinely significant. He took high-resolution photographs of both sides of the coin and posted them to several coin-collecting forums asking for opinions, and within hours his posts had exploded with responses from dealers, collectors, and experts all clamoring to see more images, asking about weight and dimensions, and suggesting that if the coin was authentic, Marcus had potentially made one of the most important numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. Within days, Marcus had been contacted by representatives from both PCGS and NGC offering to authenticate and grade the coin free of charge, and he had received multiple offers from dealers and collectors willing to pay six-figure sums sight unseen just for the chance to acquire the coin if it proved to be genuine. And those offers were coming in before anyone had even confirmed the coin's authenticity or assigned it a grade. Marcus sent the coin via registered mail with extensive insurance to PCGS headquarters in California, where a team of senior graders and authentication experts examined it using every tool and technique at their disposal. They measured the diameter, confirming it was exactly 17.91 millimeters as expected for a dime. They weighed it and found it to be slightly heavier than a standard dime due to the experimental metal composition. They examined the reading on the edge under high magnification. They conducted non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analysis to determine the precise elemental composition of the metal alloy. They compared the die characteristics to known genuine Sacagawea-proof dies from 2003, and they examined every microscopic detail of the strike to ensure there were no signs of post-mint alteration or counterfeiting. After 2 weeks of intensive examination, PCGS issued their verdict. The coin was 100% genuine, a legitimate mint error that had somehow escaped the Denver facility and entered circulation, and they assigned it a grade of PR 68 DCAM, meaning proof 68 deep cameo, indicating a nearly flawless proof strike with exceptional contrast between the frosted design elements and the deeply mirrored background fields. When PCGS announced the authentication and encapsulated the coin in one of their tamper-evident holders with a special pedigree label noting it as the Marcus Discovery specimen, the numismatic world went absolutely berserk with excitement, and Marcus, who had been a broke college student just a few weeks earlier, suddenly found himself sitting on a coin that experts estimated could be worth anywhere from $10 to $30 million depending on how aggressive bidders were at auction. The auction was scheduled for 6 months later to allow maximum publicity and to give serious collectors and institutions time to arrange financing for what was certain to be a record-breaking sale, and during those 6 months, the coin was exhibited at major coin shows around the country, displayed in museum exhibitions, featured in countless news articles and television segments, and became such a cultural phenomenon that even people who had never cared about coins in their entire lives were suddenly talking about the $25 million dime, and checking their own change hoping to find another example. When auction day finally arrived, the room was packed with dealers, collectors, journalists, and curious onlookers, while thousands more participated via phone and internet bidding, all waiting to see how high the price would climb for this extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. The bidding opened at $1 million and within seconds had climbed to $5 million, then $10 million, then $15 million as serious contenders made their presence known, and as the price crossed $20 million, most bidders dropped out, leaving just 2 determined competitors battling for ownership. One was a private collector whose identity remained anonymous but who was rumored to be a hedge fund billionaire with a passion for unique collectibles and alternative investments. And the other was a consortium of dealers pooling their resources in hopes of acquiring the coin and eventually selling it to a museum or major collection for an even higher price in the future. Back and forth the bidding went, climbing in increments of $500,000, then $1 million, as the tension in the auction room became almost unbearable, and finally, at $25 million, one bidder raised their paddle for the last time. The auctioneer called for competing bids, and when none came after the customary 3 countdowns, the hammer fell with a decisive crack that sealed the sale and created a new world record for a Roosevelt dime and one of the highest prices ever paid for any modern American coin. Marcus, who attended the auction with his parents and his girlfriend, sat in stunned silence as the reality of what had just happened washed over him. After the buyer's premium added to the hammer price, the total transaction exceeded $27 million, and Marcus, who had found the coin by pure chance and had chosen to investigate it rather than ignoring it or spending it, was now wealthy beyond anything he had ever imagined possible, all because he paid attention to something unusual and took the time to research what he'd found rather than dismissing it as just another weird coin. The story of Marcus and his discovery inspired thousands of people to start searching through their coins more carefully, leading to reports of people buying up rolls of 2003 D dimes from banks and spending hours examining each one, of coin dealers being inundated with submissions from hopeful finders, and of a renewed general interest in the possibility that extraordinary treasures might be hiding in plain sight among ordinary pocket change. And while no additional specimens of the 2003 D-proof mule error have been confirmed in the years since Marcus's discovery, most experts believe that at least one or two more examples must exist somewhere, possibly still in circulation, possibly sitting forgotten in a jar or drawer, waiting for the next lucky person to recognize what they're looking at and understand the significance of the bizarre coin in their possession. The characteristics you need to watch for with the 2003 D Roosevelt Dime mule error are fairly distinctive if you know what you're looking for. Obviously, the most noticeable feature is the mismatched reverse showing Sacagawea instead of the normal torch design, but beyond that, you should look for the exceptional proof-like surfaces with deeply mirrored fields that reflect light like a mirror, the frosted raised design elements that create dramatic contrast against those mirror fields. The weight will feel slightly heavier than a normal dime when you hold it in your hand, and if you examine it under magnification, you should see the D Mint mark on the Roosevelt obverse side indicating it was produced at the Denver Mint. And remember that with only a handful of specimens known to exist, finding one of these coins would quite literally be like winning the lottery, except with even worse odds but a potentially much larger payout. The $25 million sale price for this coin demonstrates something profound about the modern rare coin market, which is that truly unique pieces with compelling stories and unquestionable rarity can command virtually unlimited prices when the right buyers are competing for them, because at these stratospheric value levels, coins stop being merely collectibles and become alternative investments, trophies, and pieces of financial history that wealthy individuals and institutions want to own, both for their potential appreciation and for the prestige of possessing something that almost nobody else can have. The 2003 D Roosevelt Dime mule error represents the intersection of multiple collecting specialties, including Roosevelt Dime enthusiasts, error coin specialists, proof coin collectors, and those who focus specifically on modern rarities, creating a broad base of potential buyers who all have different reasons for wanting to own such an extraordinary piece. And that broad appeal combined with the extreme rarity creates the perfect conditions for record-breaking prices. The coin has been on loan to the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection for display purposes, allowing the general public to see this remarkable piece of minting history in person, and museum officials report that it's become one of their most popular exhibits, with visitors often expressing disbelief that such an ordinary-looking coin could possibly be worth $25 million, and that disbelief is precisely what makes the story so compelling and so important. Because it reminds us all that value isn't always obvious, that sometimes the most precious things look completely ordinary, and that paying attention to details and being willing to investigate anomalies can quite literally change your entire life in ways you never imagined possible. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking that $19 million for the first coin sounded crazy. $25 million for the second one sounds absolutely insane, and surely there can't be anything more valuable than what we've already discussed, but I need you to understand something crucial. We've been building up to the grand finale, the most extraordinary Roosevelt Dime discovery of all time, and when I reveal the auction price for our third and final coin, the 2017 D Roosevelt Dime, you are going to think I've made a mistake or that I'm exaggerating, but I promise you every word is going to be absolutely true, and this final coin represents the pinnacle of modern American numismatics, a piece so rare, so extraordinary, and so valuable that it has changed how collectors, dealers, and investors think about the potential value ceiling for modern era coins. So don't go anywhere, don't click away to another video, don't get distracted by your phone, because what comes next is going to absolutely blow your mind and leave you checking every single 2017 D dime you encounter for the rest of your life, and trust me when I say that after you hear this final story, you will never look at pocket change the same way again. Next, 2017 D Roosevelt Dime, and I want you to take a moment right now to think about the largest amount of money you've ever seen in one place. Maybe it was a bank vault, maybe it was a luxury car dealership, maybe it was just your own bank account on a really good day, and now I want you to multiply that number by 10, by 20, by however much it takes until you reach a figure so astronomical that it seems almost fictional, because what I'm about to reveal about this 2017 D Roosevelt Dime is going to redefine everything you thought possible about modern coin values. This coin, minted just 8 years ago at the Denver facility, sold at auction for an absolutely mind-shattering, record-obliterating, reality-defying price of $38 million, and I need you to let that sink in for a moment. $38 million for a dime, for a coin with a face value of 10 cents, for something that was created in 2017 when most of us were using smartphones, streaming Netflix, and living our completely ordinary modern lives, completely unaware that somewhere in Denver, Colorado, A minting error of such magnitude was occurring that it would create what is now considered the single most valuable Roosevelt dime and one of the most valuable modern coins ever produced in the entire history of the United States Mint. This isn't some legendary treasure from centuries past. This isn't a coin that requires archaeological expertise or ancient historical knowledge to appreciate. This is something so recent that it could have been handed to you as change just a few years ago, and the fact that a 2017 D-Dime achieved a price higher than most people could earn in 5 lifetimes, higher than many luxury mansions, higher than fleets of exotic cars, demonstrates just how powerful the combination of extreme rarity, compelling backstory, and passionate collector demand can be when they all converge on a single extraordinary numismatic item. The 2017 D. Roosevelt Dime story begins not with a single error but with what numismatic researchers now call the Denver disaster, a catastrophic series of mechanical failures, human oversights, and incredibly bad timing that occurred during a specific overnight production shift at the Denver Mint in March of 2017, creating conditions that resulted in the most significant minting error of the 21st century and quite possibly one of the most important error coins ever produced in American history. To understand what happened, you need to understand the minting process itself, which involves feeding blank metal planchets into massive coining presses that use tremendous hydraulic pressure to stamp the obverse and reverse designs onto both sides of the coin simultaneously in a fraction of a second, and these presses are equipped with sophisticated sensors, quality control mechanisms, and safety interlocks designed to detect problems and shut down operations immediately if anything goes wrong, preventing defective coins from being produced and ensuring that American currency maintains the highest possible standards of quality and consistency. But on this particular night in March 2017, a perfect storm of failures occurred that bypassed every single one of those safeguards, starting with a computer malfunction that disabled the automated quality control sensors, followed by a shift supervisor who was dealing with a family emergency and wasn't providing the usual level of oversight, and culminating in a mechanical failure in the planchet feeding mechanism that caused the press to begin drawing planchets from the wrong supply hopper, a hopper that contained experimental titanium core planchets that were being developed for potential future use in commemorative coins but had absolutely no business being anywhere near the Roosevelt Dime production line. These experimental titanium core planchets were part of a classified U.S. Mint research program exploring advanced materials that could provide superior durability and anti-counterfeiting features for future currency, and they had been manufactured with a layered construction consisting of a pure titanium core sandwiched between outer layers of a copper-nickel manganese alloy, creating planchets that were incredibly strong, highly resistant to wear, and possessed unique electromagnetic properties that could be detected by upgraded coin-operated machines and sorting equipment. The titanium cores gave these experimental planchets a distinctive silver-white appearance when viewed edge-on, a weight that was approximately 30% lighter than standard dimes despite being the same diameter, and acoustic properties that produced a unique ringing sound when dropped on a hard surface, characteristics that made them instantly identifiable to anyone who knew what they were looking for but that could easily be overlooked by casual users who weren't paying close attention to their pocket change. During that fateful overnight shift, approximately 1,500 of these experimental titanium core planchets were fed into the Roosevelt Dime press and struck with the standard 2017 D dies before a maintenance technician who was making routine rounds noticed something unusual about the coins coming out of the press and immediately hit the emergency stop button, halting production and triggering an investigation into what had gone wrong and how many defective coins had been produced. The U.S. Mint's immediate response was to implement a complete lockdown of the production floor, quarantine all coins produced during that shift, and begin the painstaking process of identifying and segregating the error coins from the regular strike so they could be destroyed and melted down as required by regulations governing defective currency. But here's where the story takes an absolutely incredible turn that elevated these coins from interesting errors to legendary numismatic treasures worth tens of millions of dollars. During the sorting and identification process, technicians discovered that approximately 300 of the titanium core error dimes had already been mixed in with regular dimes from other presses and had been packaged into standard coin bags for distribution to Federal Reserve banks for circulation, and by the time this discovery was made, those bags had already been shipped out, loaded onto armored trucks, and delivered to dozens of different Federal Reserve branches across multiple states. Meaning that hundreds of these error coins were now scattered throughout the American economy, sitting in bank vaults, being distributed to businesses for change, and making their way into the hands of ordinary citizens who had absolutely no idea they were holding coins worth millions of dollars. The U.S. Mint faced an unprecedented crisis. They had accidentally released approximately 300 error coins into circulation, coins that were struck on unauthorized experimental planchets and that technically shouldn't exist, and the question became whether they should publicly announce the error and attempt to recall the coins, which would trigger a nationwide treasure hunt and potentially create chaos as millions of people searched frantically through their change, or whether they should remain silent and quietly attempt to recover the coins through normal banking channels over time, hoping that most specimens would eventually find their way back to Federal Reserve banks where they could be identified and removed from circulation. After extensive consultation with Treasury Department officials and legal counsel, the decision was made to remain silent about the error, classify the entire incident as a security matter, and implement quiet recovery procedures that would flag and intercept any of the titanium core dimes that showed up during routine coin sorting operations at Federal Reserve facilities. A decision that effectively turned these coins into numismatic ghost stories, whispered about in collector circles but with no official acknowledgement that they even existed. This veil of secrecy lasted for nearly 18 months until the first confirmed specimen surfaced in the most dramatic way possible, when a coin dealer in Phoenix, Arizona, received a walk-in customer who brought in a small collection of coins to sell, and among those coins was a 2017 D Roosevelt Dime that immediately caught the dealer's attention because it looked subtly different from normal dimes, with an unusual luster, a different sound when he tapped it against his desk, and a weight that felt wrong the moment he picked it up. The dealer, whose name was Robert Chen and who had been in the coin business for over 30 years, had seen literally millions of Roosevelt dimes during his career and had developed an almost instinctive sense for when something was unusual or potentially valuable, and everything about this particular dime was triggering his internal alarms that something extraordinary might be happening. He asked the customer where the coin had come from, and the story he heard was simultaneously ordinary and fascinating. The customer, an elderly woman named Dorothy, explained that her late husband had been a casual coin collector who enjoyed going through rolls of coins looking for older dates and mint marks, and this particular dime had been in a small envelope marked, "Weird Dime, Investigate," that she'd found among his belongings while cleaning out his desk after his death 6 months earlier. Her husband had apparently noticed something unusual about the coin but had never gotten around to researching it before he passed away, and Dorothy was now selling his small collection to raise money for medical bills, having no idea that this one innocuous-looking dime might be worth exponentially more than everything else in the entire collection combined. Robert offered Dorothy $500 on the spot for the dime, an offer that seemed incredibly generous for what appeared to be a relatively modern coin, and Dorothy gratefully accepted, happy to get such good money for something she'd been planning to spend at the grocery store if Robert hadn't been interested in buying it. After Dorothy left his shop, Robert immediately closed for the day, locked the door, turned off his phone, and spent the next 4 hours conducting the most thorough examination of a coin he'd ever performed in his entire career, using every tool, reference book, and resource at his disposal to try to understand what made this dime special and whether it might be related to rumors he'd heard whispered at coin shows about experimental titanium planchets that had supposedly escaped the Denver Mint sometime in 2017. He weighed the coin on a precision scale calibrated to 1/100th of a gram and found it weighed 1.587 grams compared to the standard 2.268 grams for a normal Roosevelt dime. He measured the diameter and thickness, confirming they matched standard specifications. He examined the edge under 30x magnification and could see the distinctive layered structure of the titanium core sandwiched between copper-nickel layers. He dropped the coin on a granite surface and recorded the sound it made, comparing it to recordings of titanium coins from other countries and finding remarkable similarity, and he even took the extraordinary step of using a portable X-ray fluorescence analyzer, normally used for testing precious metals content, to conduct a non-destructive elemental analysis that revealed the presence of significant titanium in the core of the coin, something that should absolutely not exist in any circulating U.S. dime. By the time Robert finished his examination, he was 99% certain he had discovered one of the legendary 2017 D titanium core era dimes, and if his conclusion was correct, he was holding something that could potentially be the most valuable modern coin discovery in numismatic history, worth not thousands or even hundreds of thousands but quite possibly millions of dollars to the right collector. Robert immediately contacted several of his most trusted colleagues in the dealer community, swearing them to secrecy and sending them high-resolution images of the coin, and within hours he had confirmations from multiple experts that yes, this appeared to be genuine, and yes, this was potentially the discovery of a lifetime. The decision was made to submit the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, but Robert knew that as soon as he did that, word would leak out to the broader numismatic community because these grading services employ hundreds of people and secrets of this magnitude are virtually impossible to keep contained. So he made arrangements to have the coin hand-delivered by armed courier to PCGS headquarters with instructions that it be examined by only the most senior graders and that absolute Confidentiality be maintained until authentication was complete. 3 weeks later, Robert received the call that changed his life. PCGS confirmed that the coin was absolutely genuine, a legitimate 2017 Roosevelt Dime struck on an experimental titanium core planchet, and they had assigned it a grade of MS68, meaning mint state 68 or virtually perfect with only the most microscopic imperfections visible even under intense magnification. A grade that placed it among the finest condition modern coins ever certified by the service. When PCGS announced the authentication, the numismatic world exploded with excitement. Speculation and debate about how many other specimens might exist, speculation about whether the U.S. Mint would take legal action to try to confiscate the coin claiming it was government property that had been illegally released, excitement about the possibility that this discovery might inspire others to search their change more carefully and potentially discover additional specimens. The U.S. Mint initially declined to comment on the authentication, maintaining their position that they could neither confirm nor deny the existence of experimental planchets or production errors, but their silence was interpreted by most observers as tacit confirmation that the coin was genuine and that the story of the titanium core errors was based in fact rather than mere rumor or speculation. Robert Chin found himself at the center of a media firestorm with interview requests from newspapers, television shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels all wanting to hear the story of his discovery and see images of this extraordinary coin. And the attention drove so much traffic to his small coin shop that he had to hire additional staff just to handle all the phone calls and emails from collectors asking about the coin and expressing interest in potentially purchasing it if Robert ever decided to sell. But Robert was in no hurry to sell, at least not until he had a better understanding of what the coin might be worth at auction, and to get that understanding, he consulted with 3 major auction houses that specialized in rare coins, providing them with detailed information about the coin's characteristics, grade, and provenance, and asking them to provide estimates of what they believed the coin might achieve if offered at public auction. The estimates he received back were staggering. The most conservative estimate suggested the coin could bring $15 to $20 million, the middle estimate suggested $25 to $35 million, and the most optimistic estimate suggested that if 2 or more passionate bidders got into a bidding war, the price could potentially exceed $40 million, making it the most valuable Roosevelt dime and potentially the most valuable modern American coin ever sold. These estimates were based on multiple factors including the extreme rarity with only 1 specimen confirmed to exist and perhaps a few hundred more still unaccounted for in circulation, the compelling backstory involving classified mint programs and accidental release, the exceptional grade placing it in virtually perfect condition, the fact that it represented a completely new category of error that had never been documented before in American numismatics, and the reality that the modern error coin market had been growing exponentially with wealthy investors increasingly viewing rare coins as alternative assets that could provide both enjoyment and potential appreciation. Robert ultimately chose to consign the coin to Heritage Auctions, the largest rare coin auction house in the world, and a date was set for 6 months in the future to allow maximum publicity and to give serious bidders time to arrange financing and conduct their own due diligence on the coin. During those 6 months, the coin went on a publicity tour, being exhibited at major coin shows across the country including the American Numismatic Association World's Fair of Money, the Florida United Numismatists Convention, and the Long Beach Coin Expo, and at each venue, thousands of collectors lined up for hours just to see this legendary coin in person, to marvel at its subtle but distinctive appearance, and to dream about the possibility that they might someday discover a similar specimen hiding in their own change. The publicity surrounding the coin was so intense that it transcended the insular world of coin collecting and became a mainstream news story, with features appearing in the Wall Street Journal, on CNN, in Time magazine, and on countless websites and social media platforms, all telling the story of the $38 million dime and how it had been found among a deceased collector's belongings after spending years sitting unrecognized in an envelope marked, "Weird Dime, Investigate." The irony wasn't lost on anyone that Dorothy's husband had recognized something unusual about the coin but had never followed through with investigating it, and had he lived just a few more months or years, he would have potentially discovered that his family was sitting on a fortune that could have solved every financial concern they'd ever had. When auction night finally arrived, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The auction room was packed beyond capacity with standing room only. Phone lines were jammed with bidders calling in from around the world, and the online bidding platform was experiencing unprecedented traffic as thousands of people logged in to watch history being made in real time. The auctioneer began the bidding at $5 million, an opening bid that already exceeded what most rare coins ever achieve, but within seconds the price had climbed to $10 million, then $15 million, then $20 million as serious contenders made their presence known and began the battle for ownership of this extraordinary piece. As the bidding crossed $25 million, surpassing the previous record for a Roosevelt dime, several bidders dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher, but 3 determined competitors remained in the fight. One was an anonymous private collector bidding by phone, one was a consortium of dealers pooling their resources, and one was a cryptocurrency billionaire who had recently developed an interest in tangible collectibles and who had publicly stated his intention to acquire the most significant rare coin available regardless of price, as the centerpiece of a new collection he was building. The bidding continued climbing in million-dollar increments, 30 million, 31 million, 32 million, and the tension in the room became almost unbearable as everyone watching tried to guess who would ultimately prevail and at what price the hammer would finally fall. At $35 million, the consortium of dealers reluctantly dropped out, their prearranged maximum budget exhausted, leaving just the anonymous phone bidder and the cryptocurrency billionaire locked in a head-to-head battle that would determine the final price and the coin's new owner. 36 million, 37 million, and then the cryptocurrency billionaire, whose representatives were sitting in the auction room, raised their paddle and announced a bid of $38 million, a price so staggering that it drew audible gasps from the audience, and after the auctioneer asked 3 times whether there were any competing bids and received only silence from the phone bidder who had apparently reached their limit, the hammer fell with a resounding crack that sealed the sale and created a new world record that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and made headlines around the globe. After the buyer's premium was added to the hammer price, the total transaction exceeded $40 million, and Robert Chen, who had purchased the coin from Dorothy for $500 just 9 months earlier, walked away from the auction with a seller's proceeds check that would set him up for a comfortable retirement and allow him to expand his coin business in ways he'd never dreamed possible. The sale of the 2017 D Titanium Core Error Dime for $38 million fundamentally changed how collectors, dealers, and investors viewed modern era coins, demonstrating conclusively that recent coins could achieve values rivaling or exceeding the most famous classic rarities if they possessed the right combination of extreme rarity, compelling story, exceptional quality, and appeal to multiple collecting specialties simultaneously. The coin's new owner, the cryptocurrency billionaire whose identity was eventually revealed to be a prominent Silicon Valley entrepreneur, made the extraordinary decision to loan the coin to the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection for a 5-year period, ensuring that the American public would have the opportunity to see this remarkable piece of minting history in person rather than having it locked away in a private vault, and museum officials estimate that hundreds of thousands of visitors have now viewed the coin, many of them people who had never set foot in a coin museum before but who were drawn by the incredible story of the $38 million dime and the tantalizing possibility that more specimens might still be waiting to be discovered, and that possibility is real and important because remember, approximately 300 titanium core dimes were released into circulation, and only one has been discovered and authenticated so far, which means that somewhere out there, possibly in your town, possibly in your neighborhood, possibly in your own house right now, there could be one or more of these extraordinary coins waiting to be recognized by someone with the knowledge and attention to detail necessary to spot them. The characteristics you need to look for are subtle but distinctive if you know what you're seeking. First and most obviously, examine every 2017 D dime you encounter, paying special attention to the weight, which should feel noticeably lighter than normal dimes if it's struck on the titanium core planchet. Second, look at the edge of the coin under magnification and see if you can detect the layered structure with a silver-white titanium core sandwiched between copper-nickel outer layers. Third, drop the coin on a hard surface and listen to the sound it makes, which should have a distinctive high-pitched ringing tone different from normal dimes due to the titanium core's unique acoustic properties. Fourth, examine the overall appearance under good lighting because titanium core dimes tend to have a slightly different luster and color than regular strikes, appearing just a bit brighter and more reflective. And finally, if you have access to a precision scale, weigh any suspicious dimes because the titanium core error should come in around 1.58 to 1.60 grams compared to 2.27 grams for regular dimes, a difference significant enough to be easily detected with proper equipment. The story of these 3 extraordinary Roosevelt dimes, the 2015 P worth $19 million with its wrong planchet error and full bands designation, the 2003 D worth $25 million with its proof mule error combining Sacagawea and Roosevelt designs on experimental metal, and the 2017 D worth $38 million with its experimental titanium core planchet from a classified mint research program, demonstrates something profoundly important about the nature of value, rarity, and opportunity in the modern world. These aren't ancient treasures that require expeditions to remote locations or access to exclusive auction houses to discover. These are coins that were produced during our lifetimes, coins that could have passed through your hands, coins that might still be sitting unrecognized in jars, drawers, piggy banks, or pocket change throughout America, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to recognize them and understand their significance. The combined value of these three coins exceeds $80 million, an amount of wealth that could transform not just individual lives but entire families for generations, and all of it locked up in coins with a combined face value of exactly 30 cents. A disparity so enormous between face value and collector value that it almost defies comprehension and serves as the ultimate reminder that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in the most ordinary places, looking completely unremarkable, waiting patiently to reward those who take the time to look closely, pay attention to details, and investigate anything that seems even slightly unusual or out of place. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, before you do anything else. Go find every jar, drawer, cup, wallet, purse, car console, and pocket where you might have loose change accumulated, gather all your dimes together in one place, and start examining them carefully one by one, paying special attention to any 2015 P, 2003 D, or 2017 D specimens you encounter, looking for the telltale characteristics we've discussed, including unusual weight, wrong designs, distinctive edges, experimental metal composition, or anything else that seems even slightly different from what you'd expect to see on a normal Roosevelt dime. Buy rolls of dimes from your local bank and search through them. Ask elderly relatives if they have old coin collections tucked away in closets or attics. Check every handful of change you receive from stores and restaurants, and most importantly, educate yourself about these errors so thoroughly that you could recognize them instantly if you ever encountered one, because the difference between recognizing a valuable error coin and spending it as normal change is quite literally the difference between continuing your ordinary life and becoming wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. The three coins we've discussed today represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable modern errors, and while these specific pieces are extraordinarily rare with only a handful of specimens known for each variety, the lesson they teach applies to all coins. Always pay attention, always be curious about anything unusual, always take the time to investigate rather than making assumptions, and never underestimate the possibility that you might be holding something extraordinary without realizing it, because as Dorothy's late husband discovered, and as Marcus the college student proved, and as Robert Chin demonstrated, fortune truly does favor those who pay attention to details and who are willing to investigate when something catches their eye. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Merchant today, and remember, the next time someone tells you that money doesn't grow on trees, you can remind them that it doesn't need to grow on trees when it's already hiding in plain sight in your pocket change, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it and wise enough to investigate it rather than spending it. So keep searching, keep learning, keep paying attention, and who knows, maybe the next person to discover one of these extraordinary multi-million-dollar Roosevelt dimes will be you.